So we just covered a lot of roto in SynthEyes. I don't recommend doing roto in SynthEyes because if you're really gonna do roto in an application that's suited for roto. SynthEyes is really a 3D tracking, match moving application. This was our shot and it failed miserably, even after we did a bunch of roto to isolate all of these features. Let's review that. I'm just gonna hit the auto button again. So again, most of the shot did not even get a 3D solution. And after we do all the roto, what can SynthEyes see? Here, I'll go back to the tracker room and I'm gonna hit this little alpha button. Oh, look at that. And now we can see the alpha channel. When you get to a frame like this, and that's all that SynthEyes can try to find features in, I wanted you to see there are just some shots you should never try to auto track. This is one of them. But I'll do this before we go, just as a little extra present for you when it comes to roto. If you go to the image prep setup and you go to output, you can say save sequence, turn off RGB, turn on alpha included, and then give it a directory to save into. I've already done that. I'm saving it as a JPEG, so 85% quality is fine. And I'll hit OK, and then I can just hit start. But I'm not going to because I've already saved that out. So if you're in the image preparation and you go to res, you see this little plus alpha button. This is where it's at. So I can hit plus alpha. That's the roto I saved out. And I've saved them out as JPEGs. So I can just select that. And now when I go in here and I hit this alpha button, that's where I'm getting the alpha channel from for the roto. Little bonus for you there. You may not have known that, but again, don't use SynthEyes for roto. If you really want to get like the silhouette to be exactly around a shape, SynthEyes is not the tool for that. Do it in something else. Do it in your favorite compositing app, do it in your favorite roto application, but now you can import that roto into SynthEyes. Let's look at supervised tracking now. So I'm gonna load a new shot. This is my completed 3D track of this shot using only supervised 2D trackers. So you can see I have a perfectly good track. I'm just scrubbing forward. I have a perfectly good track here for this shot. Let's look at that in the 3D room and see what our point cloud looks like. Hey, look at that. We can see this string of points right here for that fence. Here, I'll just select all of, or I'll just lasso select the end there. So yeah, you can see that it just, I get a really great 3D representation of the scene. I get a good camera path. Camera starts to turn right here. It's great. And it's working. I'm gonna load an earlier version of the shot where we're not so far along, where I've only got a few things tracked. And you can see my first tracker. I happen to know it's this tracker right here. That was the first feature that I chose to track. Why did I choose that feature? I chose that feature in a process I like to call auditioning features. What I do is I'm going to hide all the trackers. And I'm gonna hide the 3D points just so that we can look at this like a clean, empty tracking problem to solve. I scroll through, I click on the little time bar scrub slider here, and I scrub through the shot, and I scrub backward, and I'm looking for features that are visible for long periods of time. And my eye was attracted to this stoplight. I look at it and I'm like, well, it's on for a long time. I'm going to go forward a frame here, unlock the tracker, and I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to right click on this now button. And if you look very carefully, I'm going to undo that, Control Z, and you look down here, you can see the lifetime of the tracker, and you can see the pattern keyframes, those little black triangles that face up in the timeline. I'm going to hold down the shift key. Not on the first frame, I'm just gonna go forward one frame. And I'm going to hold down the shift key and click now. Boom. it eliminates every bit of tracking history from that frame forward. I've got key now set to 8, and I've got key smooth set to 8. And I've also got under track, stop on auto key. So let's watch what happens when I hit the space bar. It just stops. It tracks forward 8 frames and it just stops. I like that. I like that behavior because it allows me to make sure that the tracker is staying on target. So, keeping my hand on the ASDF keys and my thumb on the spacebar, I'll just tap the spacebar again. And boom, and that's, the tracking looks good. And I'm gonna tap it again, and again, and again, and I'll just keep tapping the spacebar. And now when it gets here, right up to the edge of the sticker, I get a little worried. Because if I tap the spacebar again, oh, it's holding, oh yeah, see? It was bound to happen, but now if I go back, now how did I go back so easily? Well, I hit the A key. I just hit the A key, and that allows me to go between keyframes. So A, F, and if I look in the upper left-hand window, I can watch the pattern and make sure that the pattern isn't changing so remarkably. You can see that the sticker just starts to eat in a little bit, but otherwise it looks pretty similar. Keeping your fingers on that ASDF combo is so important. We know that we're going to start going into the sticker here, so I'm going to just go forward to that one frame, and I'm going to right click on key now with the shift key held down. Shift, right click. Blow away all of that history, and then I'm going to turn off the tracker. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning, and I'm just going to hit the space bar again. But before I do, I'm going to hit the 5 key to keep the thing centered. And now I'm going to just lock my eye to the center of the frame, right to the tracker, and I'm going to hit the space bar. Great. So we've retracked it. Anytime you hit the space bar, with this little lock symbol unlocked, you're tracking. If I hit the space bar, I'm actually tracking, it's retracking, it's using my keyframes, and it shuts off right there. That is the most crucial thing about the 2D tracker pipeline, because when it comes to QC, all of the QC before it gets delivered to the client starts with QCing every single 2D tracker. I take it back to the first frame, I leave it unlocked, I hit the space bar, I keep my eye locked on the screen and make sure it doesn't jump off at any point, and there, it's QC'd. Last step, I lock the tracker. Now that I've got a tracker laid down, I have to decide, what am I gonna track next? And the next tracker I know that I tracked was way over here, was this guy, this little walk symbol. You're always going to want to try and aim for the middle of the blur, and this is constantly blurring. So just aim for the middle of the blur and follow the principles of what I just showed you on that last tracker. You know, you can see I've got keyframes every 8 frames here. And then when we get here, why did I choose that leg? I chose that because on this frame right here, you can just see it, and then it disappears, and then I shut off the tracker. So I'm keeping it, I get one more frame out of it by using that feature instead of like his head. His head goes away right there, and now I lose 1, 2, 3 additional frames of tracking. So it's important what you choose to track. Oh, wait, and I get it back here. I get it for a frame there. Yes, I tracked for 1 frame. And then it's back here. Now, oh, I could have chosen this foot, and then I would have gotten that just a frame earlier. You got to choose your battles. But anyway, so now we've gotten you through the first 2 trackers, and I can say, okay, we built up a little momentum here. Okay, we've got some momentum going. But I have to talk a little bit about what the client wants, what your tracking supervisor might tell you to do. You are there to do the tracking for what the next person needs. Who's the next person? Well, that might be somebody in the 3D department. That might be somebody in the compositing department, or it might be both. So it comes down to, what does the shot need? In this shot, I made up a note. because I shot this footage. It's not from a movie. But I said a typical note might be, yeah, we don't like this fence here. We want to actually cover it up with like holograms and, you know, digital advertisements. It's some futuristic movie. And we might want to replace all the signage on the buildings because we don't want people to know this was China that where we shot this. We're going to actually make it a place in Canada or wherever. So you need to start placing your trackers, your 2D trackers, physically in space where you want the point cloud to be generated. You'll only get good at this by doing it a lot. I talk about it like it's like using a musical instrument because the only way to get good at using a musical instrument is to practice using the musical instrument. If you're practicing the guitar, you're gonna do pentatonic scales constantly to like get good at the fingering of the fretboard. Same way goes here. You're going to get good at tracking and fast if you practice these things. But we're gonna stop here. And we're gonna pick this up in the next video where I'm gonna go even deeper into this shot and track even more features and show you how things start building out. I may have done Synthize wrong. I finished doing this whole tutorial. I edited the whole thing and then I went back and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna check my work. I'm gonna make sure that I'm not telling everybody things that are wrong. And I found something. Here's my footage. I just loaded my footage and I opened up the this old Plus Alpha thing and I loaded the Alpha channel. I'm gonna hit OK there and then I'm just gonna hit Alpha here and you can see the Alpha channel is now associated with the image. There are a couple things you have to do to make this work. The easiest way to do it and not to really think about it too much is to go into the roto masking room and turn the shot alpha levels all the way up. We'll talk about that maybe sometime when I do the deepest possible dive into auto tracking. But we'll leave that there. I'm gonna turn the object alpha value up all the way as well, just for simplicity's sake. And then I'm gonna go to the summary panel and I'm gonna hit auto. I'm just gonna sit back. We'll explore this together. Hey, it finished solving in 1.1 seconds. And let's look at this shot. This was the auto tracker using all the alpha from the roto that I did in Synthize. And I have an error of 1.388 HPIX. So the auto tracker did work. It totally worked. And let's go to the trackers room just to get this bigger view. And the track worked. I'm a little embarrassed. I did a little research and I found out what was happening. So let's go back to my supervised roto scene. The way we did the roto, the way I did the roto, the way I showed you to do the roto was to create, go to shot, add moving object, rename it here. Let's bring up the hierarchy views to make this simpler. So I'll typically rename it like something like object, you know, roto trackers. And I go into the solver, I make sure that it's set to disabled so it's not part of the solution, it's not contributing to the lens calculations, nothing. I'm just using it as a holder for roto trackers. And then I started putting my roto trackers in there and then using the import tracker to control point, I would use that tracker and I would feed its keyframe information into the translations of the control points. Here's something that I didn't think of and that I didn't realize that this was a behavior of Synthize. When you have a tracker in the scene, it will kind of guide Synthize in where the auto tracking features should be detected and the way that the direction of the motion of the features. It'll try to keep all the trackers moving in the direction that your supervised tracker is telling it to go. Well, it turns out that even with all of my trackers for the roto attached to an object that was disabled and not being used for anything else, they were actually influencing the auto track. This includes if you make your supervised trackers Z-weight trackers. You have to delete the trackers. So here I have a scene that's got all of my garbage masks in it, and all of those trackers have been deleted, and I'm just gonna go to the summary panel again and hit auto. And just like the Roto I imported, that's based on these garbage masks, it worked. Our error is a bit higher than the Roto for some reason. And it's probably because how you have your colors set up here is going to affect how auto tracking is done. We covered that a while back in the first videos in the deeper dive into auto tracking. So, you know, if I don't have my high con settings exactly the same here as I did in the other shot, these values, these results are going to be different. So if you remember my note that I gave myself from earlier, that we're going to place holograms over this fence and we're going to replace signage. The auto tracker placed features that are lovely, but they're not in places where we need them. And there are some that are bad. Like I can just tell just looking at the shot. This one's sitting here floating in space. So you have to do a lot of cleanup when you use the auto tracker, especially on complicated scenes. But know that it didn't fail. In this whole tutorial, I talked a lot about theory and not a lot about practice. So in the next video, I'm going to go into extremely disciplined, supervised 2D tracking.